Hey everyone, ever wonder how a nearly new 2002 Polaris Sportsman 500 6x6 with just over 400 miles on the odometer can pack so much character? I'm Robert and welcome to my channel. I'm always juggling multiple projects and this 6x6 is one of my favorites. Today I'm going to be working on some more repairs on it. One of them I'd already done. This unit though had a little bit of interesting use to it. Previous owner mainly used it just for hauling firewood. Because of that, a lot of the suspension parts are all worn on it. The rear brakes weren't working, which because the rear brakes weren't working, the fronts also weren't working due to just how it's plumbed. When the previous owner had it, he ended up trying to bleed the brakes on it, ended up stripping the bleeder screws. Well, can't buy the brake caliper anymore for this. Polaris does offer a kit that fixes that issue. I'll go ahead and show you that now and kind of explain how I went about fixing it.
Alright, so now that I got you guys to where you can actually see what I'm talking about, the kit includes a new bleeder screw and a brass fitting and with a freshly machined seat for the screw with the 1/8 inch NPT thread on the outside. So what I ended up doing was carefully drilling out where the strip threads were for the old bleeder screw, tapped the hole for the new pipe threads, cleaned out all the metal shavings, installed the brass fitting, and bled the brakes just like normal. So for some context, as I was talking about how it caused the front brakes to not work previously, on a 6x6, the left-hand brake applies fluid to both the front brakes and one chamber in the rear, which would actually be this side. On the right-hand brake, that applies fluid to another chamber on the rear only, which is just this side. This is actually the first time that I've seen this sort of setup on anything. Have any of you come across similar design? Drop your thoughts in the comments for me. To test the fix, I tapped some wood into the caliper to stop the piston from pushing out when the front brakes were applied during the test drive. The results were really informative and helped me plan out the next steps for getting this unit back to peak performance. Here's a quick rundown of the maintenance tasks I am planning. I'm going to change the motor oil, transmission fluid, front gearbox fluid, and the fluid in the locking hubs. Mainly because those are known to have issues if they don't have good clean fluid in them. I'm going to replace both the front and rear suspension bushings because, as I said before, it was used for hauling firewood. I'm going to replace the seals on the rear brake caliper and install new brake pads, then bleed both the front and rear brakes correctly with them actually working. I'm going to swap out the original drive belt. Yep, that's right, 23-year-old drive belt, and inspect the clutch. I also have new tires on order for it all the way around, and I'm going to replace the steering bushing because half of that bushing is missing, and so there's a whole bunch of movement there. If you have any recommendations for other things to check or replace on a 23-year-old ATV, please share your insights in the comments. Thank you. Beyond basic maintenance type stuff, I've got some cool upgrades in mind to boost its off-road capability. Upgrade the stock halogen lights to LED pod lights, using floodlights for low beams and spotlights for high beams. Replace the broken handlebar pod light with an LED automotive headlight featuring both high and low beams. Upgrade the stock battery to an Optima Quad 30 battery. And mainly, the reason why I want to go to a much bigger battery is because I plan on fabricating a custom front winch bumper to mount a Badland 5,500 pound winch and add a custom rear frame mount for a second winch of the same size on the back of the frame. What upgrades have you done to your ATV, whether it's 4x4 or 6x6? I'd love to hear your ideas and maybe I'll add some to my list. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is get the seat out of the way because we're going to end up fixing the steering. There's a whole bunch of play to it. So we'll get this off. And it looks like some of the hardware is already missing that we're going to need to get off for getting that out of there. So I'm going to get the fuel cap off. That out of the way.
Alright, now I got you guys in there a little bit closer. Go ahead and take the bolts out of it, which are going to be one on each side, one here and one on the other side. And I guess that's probably a piece of something that was previously used for bushing. And there's the other half. Bushings that were in it, that's actually a piece of pipe. And here are the factory bushings that actually lock together and they can't move up and down. Alright, now that we've got that all apart, let's start getting that put back together now. So I know there's the one of the brake lines coming down through. One bolt. Alright, the bolts are in. Go and tighten those. Alright, let's give that a shake. Much better. Alright, now that we got that all washed off, let's go ahead and get the tire off of it. Which it looks like a torn CV boot also in here. Now the cotter comes off. We can also take the nut off there too. There's one bolt off the control arm, and there's one more on the back side. Okay, so you got a little thread lock on both sides of them. Get out of there. There we go. Okay, should be able to pull out on it now. There we go. And there's actually a piece of the old bushing. It's a brass spacer that they've got on each side. And chunks of the old bushing inside. There's the shaft that it all pivots on, so it'll have to all get cleaned up nicely with remains of bushing in there. So we'll get that the rest of the way off of there and get it all cleaned back up and be right back. Alright, now that I got everything cleaned off and cleaned some of the grease out of the frame, cleaned off the axle shaft a little bit. Got what was left of the old bushings knocked out of it, which pretty much just completely dissolved and are brittle in little pieces. The new ones, including new brass bushings, it's one of those on each side. You just slip right into them. And then the pivot shaft just slides right in. Give it a little tap. And you want to have that flush on each side so it's not sticking out any. And then that gets tapped up into the frame. Until the bolts line up. Okay, one started, and the other one went right in. Go ahead and snug those up. They're not tight, but I want to make sure I put grease in it. I'm just going to pop grease in until it comes out both sides. There it goes. Okay. Clean off the extra little bit of grease that comes out. That way it's not a mess. You might have to hold both sides of them to tighten them up the last little bit. And the lower ball joint has a little dust boot on it that clean it off real quick. Stick that back on there. This little guy. Just lift up on the control arm. You can go back into it. Then you put the nut back on. Alright. And just did the same thing on the other side. And I'll just have to torque that lower ball joint nut and then the bolts on each side. And that'll end up being it. Thank you for joining me on this first video where I was covering changing the steering column bushings and the lower control arm bushings. And make sure to like and subscribe so that you see my next video where we'll be covering replacing the original drive belt and doing a engine oil change and making sure to replace the filter and drain out the oil that's in the crankcase also. In future videos I'll be covering things like rebuilding the front end of it, rebuilding the rear suspension on it. I've got new tires that just came in for it, and a bunch of other accessories for it. Thank you again. See you later.